Hello everyone, welcome to ANALOG IAS Current Affair Analysis for 5th November 2019. These are the articles that we'll be discussing today and the corresponding newspapers and page numbers are given here. Yesterday, India decided against joining the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, the Mega Asian Trade Agreement between 16 countries which have almost half the world's population because its core concerns were not addressed. What is RCEP? This is the prelims information. It is a free trade agreement between the 10 ASEAN members and its free trade agreement partners. Now with the withdrawal of India, there are only 15 members. You have to learn who these 15 members are and remember them for your prelims examination. Also, you have to know what are the 7 stages of economic integration. This is also important for prelims exam. Now coming back, why did India refuse to join such a pact? Simply put, it is because the trade deal was not catering to India's needs. In fact, there is a potential danger to India's domestic industry. This is because if India signs this pact, it will have to remove trade tariffs which will make imports much more cheaper than domestic products. This will destroy Indian industry as they are not competitive yet. Secondly, there is this issue of tariff concession base here. India is trying to achieve self-sufficiency in electronics, and especially with the traction of Digital India, mobile markets have been growing. Making 2014 as the base year for tariff reduction will only be considered as a step backward in this direction. The second issue is the ratchet clause in the RCEP deal. According to this, governments have to freeze their current levels of market opening, and if they liberalize more, they cannot go back. This is a threat because India cannot impose any anti-dumping measures against China, which has a history of resorting to dumping excess production at an unbelievably low price, which could potentially destroy Indian industry. Thirdly, Indian service industry has been the backbone of our economy for the last 2 decades. So we have been demanding opening up service trades, which was not given due importance in this negotiation. Even the negotiations to seek exemptions to dairy products from producers and marginal farmers who shall be vulnerable to cheaper imports from countries like Australia, New Zealand are also not addressed. So, if such a deal is signed, it would only increase regional and social inequality. Our Prime Minister even quoted Gandhi's talisman, which says that you have to consider the poorest of the poor when you are signing a policy, and hence decided that he is not going to sign this deal. If India wants to leverage such global deals, it has to build its capacities for making Indian trade competitive. What are the steps needed? The first one being market reforms, and specifically factor market reforms. What are factor market reforms? Reforms in the sectors of land, labor, capital, and ease out all the inefficiencies in the system. Secondly, you have to carry out investments in infrastructure. And thirdly, you have to focus on measures that will increase the trade competitiveness of our country. Globalization is just a tool. Whether it induces prosperity or augments inequality completely depends on how we utilize it. In this context, try to answer this question. The next article for the day is Some Relief at Last from Scorched Earth Tactics. This is an article from Live Mint regarding the air pollution situation in Delhi. As you have seen, the air quality index in Delhi has crossed 1000. In this context, Supreme Court issued some orders to the states and demanded an explanation from various chief secretaries as to the reason why they were not able to control the crop stubble burning situation in their states. Secondly, it ordered strict enforcement of the needed legislations in that areas and also warned officials of any inaction. Also, it also expressed doubts over odd even scheme in Delhi. However, the main takeaway from this article is the emphasis on cultural policies that needs course correction for handling this air pollution situation, crop stubble burning. The first one talks about how we have to stop public procurement of rice and wheat, which are the major crops of the region where crop stubble burning is happening. So The author says that we have to stop procurement of rice and wheat as there are enough buffer stocks. The farmers should be incentivized for crop diversification smartly and ensure that their incomes are not compromised. Secondly, there has been a situation where farmers are not willing to go for farming equipment and instead preferring crop stubble burning. It is because the farm equipment is very expensive. So the governments must take this as an opportunity to subsidize and encourage farm equipment usage. Thirdly, we have to monitor our water tables. As you can see in this article, groundwater conservation laws in Punjab and Haryana have pushed the sowing season to late summer. As a result, there is very less time between seasons, and hence farmers prefer crop burning rather than using equipment to clear this crop residue. Now try to answer this question. The next article is taken from Hindu, fusing traditional medicine with the modern. Now, before starting this article, I want you to go back and look at the full form of Ayush. What are the different alternative medicine systems recognized by the Ministry of Ayush, and what are the various initiatives under it? This article is talking about the scope of Ayush as an alternative medicine and how Ayush can augment our public capacities in providing healthcare service. Now, what is the need for Ayush? Traditionally, the focus of alternative medicine is well-being. World Health Organization defines health as a state of well-being, but not just absence of disease. It is this emphasis on well-being that makes alternative medicine a useful tool for Indian context. India has a need of almost 1 crore workers in their public healthcare service, and Ayush is seen as a potential tool to fill this gap. The controversial National Medical Commission Act has been trying to use this as a leverage and create a workforce that supports the ecosystem of Ayush. However, there are certain issues with this approach, the most important being that of public perception. There have been many instances of Ayush practitioners indulging in quackery, and there is a mindless cosmetization of Ayush products as seen in the case of various multinational companies as well as Indian companies. In order to fight this perception, the author argues that we have to take some inspiration from the Chinese model, which has successfully integrated its traditional medicine with that of the mainstream medicine. As back as 1948, the Chopra Committee recommended mainstreaming Ayush education with the mainstream medical education. However, certain vested interests were against this kind of a move and ensured that Ayush was isolated from mainstream education. Now, the most important outcome that we have to focus on is public well-being and public health care. So, as envisaged in National Health Policy 2017, we have to ensure that Ayush is built on a strong tradition of medical evidence, and we have to debate on the relative weaknesses of each system and integrate it with modern medicine. Only then, as envisaged in National Health Policy 2017, we can attain the objective of both physical and mental well-being of all the people of this country. Now try to answer this question. Ayush as an alternative medicine has a huge scope in solving India's healthcare needs. Examine. The next article is a very insightful piece on the Indo-Pakistan and Afghanistan relations. It is titled The Afghani Shadow by C. Mohan from Indian Express. A closer look at the internal politics of Pakistan shows how the leaders there are trying to arrive at a consensus and gain political mileage by treating India as a threat and Taliban as a friend. This article tries to explore some of the myths propagated by the vested interest in this context. The first one being, both Pakistan and India have propagated the myth that their nation building is incomplete without full control over Kashmir. Secondly, they have been undermining the diversity in Kashmir and treating it as a territorially homogeneous unit. However, if you look at the map and demography of that region, it is a collection of diverse races and various cantons that came together just because of a chance of history and there is nothing homogeneous about Kashmir Valley. Thirdly, Kashmir Valley is often hyped as a nuclear flashpoint that can trigger a global war, which is not true. Fourthly, there is a belief that once the Kashmir issue is solved, all the conflicts between India and Pakistan will be permanently settled. However, this is not true because all the Indo-Pakistani conflicts dates back to the legacy of partition, and unless and until we resolve that bitter animosity, we cannot solve all the issues of Indo-Pakistan conflict. The last myth is that in Pakistan there is a narrative that the entire historical evolution of subcontinent is based on who possesses the control over Kashmir. But it is hardly a reality because Kashmir is not an emotive issue in South India or Indo-Gangetic plains where developmental indicators and caste politics play a major factor. In contrast, the threat posed by Afghanistan to Pakistan is much larger. Historically, Afghanistan has always been a buffer state. It has perpetually been an arena of conflict, and all the great invasions into Indian subcontinent happened through Afghanistan. If you look at its history, whether it is the communist coup of 1978, the rise of Taliban, the post 9/11 attacks, and the ensuing civil war, and again the rise of Taliban in present day, you can say that it is a state where there is a perpetual civil rebellion. Even Afghans do not recognize the historical Durand line, which is a border between Afghanistan and Pakistan. There is even a possibility of breakdown of the state of Pakistan thanks to Pashtunistan, a geographically historical region inhabited by the indigenous Pashtun people of modern day Pakistan and Afghanistan, wherein Pashtun culture, language, and national identity have been emphasized. And also, there is a long standing demand for Balochistan, which has been again gaining traction in mainstream politics. So, considering all these factors, Pakistan should focus more on its Afghanistan border rather than emphasizing and internationalizing Kashmir issue. That is what the author is trying to say. Now try to answer this question.